nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is a gentleman calling in from overseas somewhere, the UK. He's going to give you the name of it. Because you know what? There's a lot of strange names out there, countries that you never heard of, little ones, big ones, whatever. So we'll let you introduce that. But my guest today is Michael McDonnell, and thank you so much for being here, Michael. We have a real treat for our audience today. So tell us again the little country that you're from, little town that you're from, and what you do and how you got started and everything.
All right, Bev. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on. It's always going to be a pleasure to be interviewed and be a guest. So thanks for that. A bit about me. I'm actually based in Lanzarote, which is one of the Canary Islands. So it's a part of Spain.
Okay.
What I do, I help service-based entrepreneurs that are struggling with things like fear, and they struggle to put themselves out there as experts confidently. That's what I spend most of my time on. But aside from that, I have my own podcast, and I'm a speaker as well, and I've got a whole host of other projects that I've got my hand in, so to speak. So yeah, it's amazing. I love the impact that I'm having right now, and I'm excited to keep going with it.
Well, that's great. It's kind of like most of us, that have been in the industry for so long. It's like, you get this trail of all these different things you're involved, and then you're like, oh my gosh, which one do I put out there first? And you want to dump it all out there, but then it's like, oh, that's way too much information, right? So you start looking at different elements. And again, too, your different markets, as to, if you're in this market, this is going to be more up their alley, shall we say, to start with. So it's not that you don't incorporate all the information from the different elements and the different things that you do, because that's what makes you unique, right? The more you can get under your belt, the more information, the more different modalities, the more education that you have that you can put into action to help your clients take the right action, they're going to get to the outcome way faster. Have you found that to be true when you start working with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, if sort of going back to when I first started the whole helping people thing, that's when I was about 16. So I've been in the business of helping people now for well over 10 years now. And I started off doing what I knew. So it was tennis coaching at first, because tennis is one of the sports that I used to play.
Okay.
And quite quickly, I knew I was never going to be a professional, because you pick up a sport at 16, you're not going to be a professional. It's impossible. Some kids have got 10 years on you, and you're never going to make it. So I got pretty good. I competed from a university. Coaches were saying, well, you're not going to be a professional player, even though you are good. Would you consider being a coach? Because we noticed that you give people tips and things as well. Would you be a coach? And that was the first thing for me. That was the first kind of step into it. I had no idea what I was doing, no idea what to do, but I got my qualifications, did all the courses, got a degree in coaching, and I loved it. I loved working with the kids, seeing their eyes light up when they got better, and that I've been chasing that ever since. So I think when it comes down to helping people and helping clients and doing all those things, I find that people either get the buzz from it like I do,
Right.
or they've got this like secret agenda of, well, I'm only going to help people if I make money from it, or
Right.
if there's always something in it for me. And sometimes that can sour it quite a bit, because I can't tell you how many times I would happily do some things for free, like just out of the goodness of wanting to help. And then there are some things that if I then shifted towards, got to monetize this now, and you start sort of crossing that cavern from like free to paid, your
Right.
brain starts to play games with you a little bit. The whole kind of, it has to be good, it has to be worth it, you've got to make it better than your other stuff. And I don't know if it's just my little code that I have, or this sense of responsibility that I have. Okay, people are paying for this, I've got to make it good. Some people have that, and I don't think some people do have that, and that can make all the difference sometimes, is having that responsibility and
Right.
having that sense of commitment, I guess, to those people and to that avenue that you're going down. Sometimes you don't get the results unless you actually commit, unless you've got skin in the game, and unless you take responsibility for the results that you're getting.
And that is so true. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of broke practitioners out there. Shall we say? It's kind of like the broke artist, you know. And the work that you do, the work in the field that we're in helping, you know, others, is an art, you know. And it does take commitment. It takes commitment not only on the practitioner's part, but it takes really commitment on the participant, you know, client, customer, whatever you want to call them. But it takes two to tango, as they say. And again, when you are sitting over here as the practitioner saying, well, the condition is, if you don't pay me, you don't get, you know, and if you're going after the dollar, if you're chasing after the dollar, you're missing the boat, because where's your passion? Where's your passion? And I feel that your passion is in the same place as mine is. It's about helping that other person. But again, it's not doing everything for free, because then they don't value what you do. So you've got to put a value on what you do and where you're taking others. And it's like, yes, you know what? I think this is going to be a really good fit with what you're looking for and what I have to offer. Now let's see what kind of skin in the game can we have. How committed to yourself are you? Where are we going to start? What's going to be the starting point that's going to be comfortable for you and comfortable for me, and then we can continue to grow with that, right? You know, and say, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, before the show about this word commitment, right? Now you mentioned something earlier on too, that you're looking for building that confidence, but also overcoming those fears. So fear and confidence, how does that unite with commitment, and also into the theme of the show here, being that best you can be? Can you bring that all in full circle for everybody out here that's listening?
One of the simplest ways of linking it all together is there's a difference between getting out of your own way,
Okay.
and then you've also got to think, okay, how can I better this? How can I improve it? Because if you get out of your own way, like sort of overcoming some of the insecurities that you have, getting over some of the fears that you have, and all those things, that will get you so far. That makes life a bit easier for you, because you're not stopping yourself at every turn. You're not questioning yourself. You're not doing any of those things. But that doesn't mean that you'll be the best. That means that you will simply start the ball rolling. But how can you speed up the roll? What can you do?
Right.
What can you do to improve things? It's almost like, do you just start posting content on, say, Facebook or Instagram? Get over your own insecurities about whether it's good enough. That will get you to like posting memes sometimes, the odd quote, maybe sort of writing bits and pieces here and there. But then there's a difference between, okay, confidence can make you start writing full-blown blog posts. That will get you to the point where you start doing lives very similar to this one, not because, okay, I overcome my fears of X, Y, and Z. Okay, that might get you going, but then what can you do to go from just doing the basics,
Right.
just ticking the boxes, just going through the motions, or really going all in and really committing to bettering yourself and improving yourself? So there is that whole sense of, okay, overcome the fears is one thing. Becoming a bit more of a confident version of you is another. Those two things allow you to commit enough to get the return on your investment. Because I don't know about you, but motivational quotes isn't going to benefit everybody business-wise unless you
No.
sell
No.
a book of motivational quotes. So unless you put the effort in and really commit to whatever it is that you're doing, you're not going to get more confident, because you think it's not good, you think it's not working, you
Right.
think you're not good enough. Nothing to do with what it is that you're doing. It's the fact that you're not confident enough to really put yourself out there and really commit and dive in, you know? Sometimes that can always come back to fear, because fear is there at every moment. You've got to have that conversation with yourself. Never goes away. No matter how much we try, it never goes away. But that's not the point. It's not about getting rid of it. It's about being comfortable, confident, committing to the fact that it is a cycle. It's a repeating cycle. It's part of the journey. That's what the journey is. The journey is essentially repeated cycles. It just looks like a journey because very few people talk about the fact that we have to talk ourselves into doing some things on some days of the week. We have to force ourselves to get out of bed. As of now, we've got
some days are like that.
Some days are like that. We've got the virus right now, and it took me half an hour to convince myself to get out of bed this morning because I didn't have any meetings in the morning. So I'm sat there going, I'll get out of bed in a minute. I will get out of bed. I will do it. It will happen.
Yeah, I got a show today.
I've got a show today. I've got people to talk to. I've got clients to help, but it's just not in the morning. I could spend all morning in bed. No, you can't spend all morning in bed. You've got to get out of bed. You've got to whip yourself into shape, and you've got to do it. Well, that took about half an hour.
It goes into that productivity too, and I think you really touched on something here with being confined at home and stuff like that, where people are used to going somewhere, and punching a time clock, right? And it's different, everybody, a lot of people want to be an entrepreneur. Everyone has that entrepreneur spirit. However, again, it goes back into that discipline and the commitment combination, right? Because it's taking that action. You need to have that action step, because if you don't put into action, nothing's going to take place, right? And that procrastination likes to creep up. Now, you also made mention here, you're talking about fear, but you also used another word, insecurity. Now, what I've known when I talk with clients and stuff, right? They all admit fear. Fear is here and everything. But I've noticed when I use the word insecurity, I don't have any of those, right? Have you noticed a response like this? Oh, wait a minute. No, I have no insecurities, right?
I have a real try not to get overly frustrated about people that say that. But one of the things that people don't realize is people use fear as a button that they press when they don't want to do something.
Right.
It's not actually fear. It's not. It's worry. It's insecurity. It's being anxious. It's not fear, but they've read a book somewhere that said that it's fear, and they use it, and it causes them to feel a bit too intense of an emotion. Right. So they feel that they can't get past it. So nothing to do with fear itself, unless we're surrounded by dinosaurs or lions or whatever it is. It's not something that we actually feel.
Right.
So when it comes to a lot of stuff that we speak about is about quality, right? And sometimes it's the confidence and the lack of insecurities that allows you to put out the quality.
Right.
Because quantity is the easy bit. Sit there on my phone for half an hour a day, I can do the quantity bit, no problem. It's putting the effort in, realizing that we spend this show might last about an hour, maybe a bit longer, depending on what we talk about. It's not all about that. I had a ritual before the show. I'll have one after the show. I've got things to do tonight to make sure that I'm fresh for tomorrow. And I want to factor in the fact that I've been on camera for 3 or 4 hours today. And I want to factor that into what I do around that.
Right.
So the hour that you spend on camera is never just the hour that you spend on camera. It's everything that goes behind
the scenes. Exactly.
Everything that goes on behind the scenes. Right. So a lot of the stuff that athletes do, performers do, us entrepreneurs do, high performers have to perform at a certain level. There's no getting around that. And when people use words like fear and insecurities, and the people that speak on stage to thousands upon thousands of people, if they're insecure, they won't make it onto the stage.
Exactly.
You won't. The body will crumble. The brain will go to all kinds of judgment, fear of being hated. Am I good enough? I'm not worthy enough. Whatever the story is,
right.
I've got a lot of I've got a lot of empathy for speakers because unless you've ever spoken on stage, you've got no idea what it's like. Someone's, oh, I've done 500 videos, I can speak on stage.
Oh
No,
no,
you
it's a whole
can't.
different ball
It's
game.
completely different. You go, oh, I've got no insecurities. I've got over myself. I'm on camera. Try having 1,000 eyeballs staring at you and
Right,
hoping that you do a good job.
right.
So I think that's what people don't realize is getting over your insecurities that allows you to do it.
Well, and
So
it's recognizing what that insecurity is, and like you said, so we actually have we have two emotions, two key emotions that everything else is built off of. So you have fear, which drives you into the insecurities, into the lacks of, into the loss of self-esteem and all that kind of stuff, which is all connected with that fear-based energy, right? And then you have love on the other side, which is connected to fun and happiness and joy and confidence and courage and all those things, right? So it has to build off of one or the other. Everything else is gray space. So what is your gray space, right? And when you can recognize that, and again, we talk about fear. How do you move beyond the fear? Fear is always going to be there because that's part of the duality world and what triggers in the brain. It's recognizing that, whoa, I just got a trigger here. And it's not about being negative and positive in the aspect that it's good or bad or right or wrong. It's a charge. And we've talked about this on different shows. When you have that positive charge and that negative charge. So when you can learn how to utilize that, because that negative charge is very powerful, very powerful. So you can use that to drive you to your outcome. When your outcome and the belief of your outcome is stronger and greater than the fear of getting there, right? The fear of getting there. That will drive you into courage, into confidence, and everything else. However, if you continue to feed your mind and you feed that fear that I'm not good enough, I can't do this, it's going to flip it, and that negative charge will push you into the depth of darkness. And where do you go? So learn how to recognize the fear for what it is, the charge for what it is, and then your belief and your vision. Your vision has to be bigger than anything else out there. And it's that vision you put on top of your fear. And it'll drive you through the how of every single step. And it will get you to that success and that outcome that you're seeking. So the outcome isn't the biggest aha. It's that journey along the way that gets you there, right? It's like the chase, right? You go after the chase and you get the prize, and then you're like, oh, well, that was short-lived. Okay, well, what's the next chase, right?
I mean, if you think about it as well, like most people judge themselves too harshly as well.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot of like shame involved, and
Exactly.
it's not just about that though. It's about feeling bad for feeling bad. I don't know if you've ever had people that have had that where I feel really bad about feeling anxious about this thing. So why? Well, because not everybody does. I'm telling you now, everyone does. I think there's a comparison to be said for it. There's a judging yourself harshly. Because I think a lot of people, they so focus on other people's opinions,
Right.
that they use them to form their own opinions about themselves.
Right. And then it becomes an excuse to not take action. I tell my clients a lot of this. It's a quote that I got. I don't know who was the first one that said it, but I'll tell you, it works really good when you can start to say, it doesn't matter what other people think of me. It matters what I think of me. Because when you become that true expression of you, and again, it's your own identity. Don't make your identity of what you think others out there perceive that you should be. Because it's not about their experience here. It's about your experience. So if you want to have a different experience out here in the world, right, from what you had yesterday, last week, last year, 10 years ago, right, then you need to say, what is my experience that I choose to have today? Where do I want to take me today to become an even better me so that I can serve others. So how do I serve myself first? Because if I don't serve myself with a full cup, I'm not going to be able to serve others with full cup, because you can't give more out of yourself than what you give to yourself. So if all you're feeding yourself, as you mentioned here, Michael, feeding yourself this, I'm not good enough, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, judging yourself, so if you're feeding yourself judgment, what are you going to feed the world out there? Judgment. Remove judgment from your vocabulary. Remove judgment from your life. You are going to have the greatest aha moments that you could ever imagine. Quit judging. You're your own best friend or your own worst enemy. If you're your worst enemy, you're going to be the enemy out there. If you're the friend in here, you're going to be the friend out there. So
I think part of it as well is we don't really know who we are either. So I often say, like, if you don't know yourself, then how do you know how to how do you know how to navigate everything? How do you know how to communicate? How do you know how to be yourself if you don't? This is why a lot of the whole self-improvement industry is like half-baked. All of it. It's like, oh, well, you need to be yourself. Okay, I get it.
But
what
who
if I
am
don't know who
How
that
do
is?
I be me?
What if I don't know who that is? So most people don't know who they are. And part of the issue, I talk about this because I heard it years ago. Can't remember who said it. My memory's awful now. But it was, if you spend a lot of time being around people that like the mask that you're wearing, then you will keep the mask on and you won't want to take it off.
Oh my gosh, that is so
when you're
true.
in like high school, let's say, you would tend to be someone to fit in, but then everyone around you loves the mask that you're wearing. You have no idea who you are, because the furthest back we can go tends to be about high school, and that's not who we are. Primary school is probably more of a case of who we are, which is why if you fulfill the needs of who you were when you were a child, that's amazing. Like, I used to love space when I was a kid, so the background that you've got is pretty cool. That's just the way it is. It's just it's the way it is. So most of it is about being okay with losing the people, or maybe not losing the people that used to like the mask that you're wearing. This is why people spend their time with friends they don't really like or don't get on with, spouses they don't really get on with anymore. They feel like they've got to pretend all the time. People that just don't know themselves to begin with, and they've built a life around them that supports the version of themselves that they're comfortable enough to show, whether or not it's actually who they are or not.
That is so true, Michael. I mean, it really is, because we lose ourselves in the identity of association. And that's what started my journey. Way back in 1974 is when my journey started. Well, back in 74, there wasn't the stuff that's out there now, and so it was really coming with inside myself, and my angers were so deep and so intense, right? That I used my anger to drive me, not to destroy me, because I made the flip when I started to really understand, that anger was driving me into an abyss of who am I? What am I? Why am I? And I was being associated by what I did. Oh, you're the one who writes for the newspaper. Oh, you're so-and-so's mom. Oh, yeah, you live down there in the corner block. Oh, yeah. It's like, wait a minute. I have a name. Where's my identity? And that's why, and that's kind of why I started Identity Revelation, was because if we don't have an identity, and our identity is who we think everybody else wants us to be, as we tapped on earlier, then what is your purpose? And so being able to be coming out of that shell and be that expression of who you are. Not everyone is going to like you. Like you say, you're peeling off the mask because you don't like what you see, and sometimes underneath that mask, it don't look very pretty. But you know what? Again, you move it beyond, because it's your old database that says, hey, but it changes. And again, let's talk a little bit about the virtual reality world, right? With the little avatars and stuff, right? Which are really cool, because they're using that to help people get over different phobias and stuff like that, and different beliefs. So again, you commented going back into your childhood, your early childhood, when you still have dreams. You wanted to be a fireman, you wanted to be a mountain climber, you wanted to fly into space, you wanted to do whatever, right? Because that's the real you. You had this imagination. You had the vision. And then as you say, now all of a sudden you reach a certain age, I got to fit in. Because if I don't fit in, nobody's going to like me. Right? Then I'm always on the outside and I'm not going to be accepted here and there. And we take that into our adult life. And then we get in this little facade of a comfort zone, a miserable comfort zone that's predictable. So we stay in it. And what happens? Inside here, we're just being torn apart of like, there's got to be more to life, right? Yeah. And that's what hit me in 1974 is like, you know what? This is not my dream. This is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not what I made a commitment to myself to be. How do I get out of it, right? And you go through that and your journey goes, right? And everyone has a story. Everyone has a different journey. Everyone has a different take on it. But again, this show, just by talking to different people on how they got started in their adventure, in their journey, and how it took them into where they are today. In that, how can I serve you? How can I help you become that better you? How can I help you get out of that stuck gunk that has become a false truth of who you really are, and take the mask off, take all the facades off. Quit lying to yourself. If you want to lie to the world out there, continue that. But quit lying in here. Because when you find the truth of who you are, it becomes easier to be you out there. There's billions of people out there. Trust me, somebody's going to like the real you. So you need to learn to like that real you. It's not about just loving yourself. It's about liking yourself, right?
Yeah, and it becomes about the same thing as you grow as well. Because there's a difference between, how can I put it? There's a difference between trying to force yourself to grow and improve yourself.
Right.
And then there's the fact that, okay, I'm just getting older now and I'm wiser, learning from my mistakes, and I'm just not going to keep doing this anymore. Versus, okay, I need to do a lot of work on myself. I've got to read books, listen to podcasts, watch shows like this, learn about myself, figure out what on earth I'm all about, what I want to do, and then put that into place. So
Yeah.
it's trying to find that delicate balance between what you're actually doing, because most people get older without actually growing, and most people grow without actually getting older. Because
right.
I'm about 28, right? 28. So I feel like I'm older than I am because I've been through quite a bit. I've had to grow. I've had to change and realize that I didn't.
Right.
Most of my earlier years was spent realizing that I didn't want to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Football bored me. Wasn't a fan of a lot of the education system. I just didn't like it. Didn't enjoy it. Wasn't very good at it, and it wasn't something I was prepared to bore myself to death trying to learn. So it wasn't something that I was really keen on.
Right.
Wasn't something I wanted to do. And because I had health conditions, my parents were like, well, get a job, go to college, do your thing, do what it takes to get whatever it is that you want to do. But I'm not going to force you to do something that you don't want to do, because, well, we never really know how long we've got left, right? But
no.
There was a real sense of, you've got one life, Mike. We don't know how long it's going to be, so you may as well just go for it. You may as well go for it. And unfortunately, I don't share this all too often, but because of my health conditions, I'm actually older than my life expectancy. So
that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah, it's not something I share a lot, but that's the way it is. So
right.
when I talk about, okay, well, I don't want to do that, it's not coming from a place of I hate it, it's boring. It's not coming from that place. It's from, well, there's something that I do actually want to do. There's something that I would much rather spend my time doing, and that's the way it is. And I think that when you think about trying to navigate the world as well, because I do mention this sometimes, is that it can seem very self-centered.
Yes.
Doing all the work that we speak about, working on yourself, removing the masks, all those things, it can seem very self-centered and very selfish, and very often that's where the judgment comes from, because when we take the masks off and we realize that other people don't like that, we are more likely to put the masks back on for their sake rather than our own. And while that might not seem like a bad idea, because if that person is your spouse, your wife, husband, best friend, that can seem like, well, is it worth the effort? Is it worth the commitment? Is it worth it when I don't mind this space right now? It's not too bad that I'm prepared to put myself and everybody else through hell just so I can learn more about myself.
Well,
So
I
it
think
seems
that
like you don't get the ROI in the first instance
right.
because you realize how hard it is, how difficult it is. Other people don't like it anyway. I don't like it, so why bother?
Yeah.
And then you realize it does actually start to get worse. So a lot of people don't change unless things get so bad that they have to.
Yeah, it reaches that point of explosion, which isn't good. And I think it all boils down into that lack of communication. We're afraid to communicate and say exactly what we mean, so we try to buffer it, which then makes more confusion. You know, so just say it is. Just start your conversation and say, you know, I want to share something with you, and I want to share it coming from my heart. Exactly what it is that I feel, and I want you to listen to me and hear it out. I'm not asking for you to interact with it. I just need to be an expression of it so that you can understand where I'm looking for me, right, in this relationship and everything, you know, to communicate. And I want to make a space to where you can communicate back to me so we can start to being on an honest and move away from the assumptions and build and grow together. You know, because some relations can grow together, and other times, you know, you're stagnating each other, and sometimes you need to love someone more to let them go than to keep them in their ungrowth, you know, giving them the opportunity to set them free, right? You know,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
so,
it can be about making it worth it, though. That's the thing. And I talk
right,
about, like, sometimes you've got to no longer settle for what it is. Like,
right, don't
so many
settle for
people
less than, yeah,
we're quite tolerant as people. We're quite tolerant people. We put up with stuff. It's not so bad that I've got to change this thing. It's
right,
not. There's a real sense of we do it every day, so it gets easier. We are more tolerant of it. We get stronger, right? The whole sort of life doesn't get easier. We just get stronger. That
right,
happens with everything. That happens with something we do like, something we don't like, a business project that you're like, oh, well, maybe I should probably. It's not so
right.
bad. I'll keep it going a bit longer.
But it's
You
meeting in the
realize
middle
that most
too,
people
right?
just drag it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is that.
yeah,
There is that sense of you've got to figure out whether it's worth it. Like a pros and cons list can go a long way
right,
sometimes. And the problem is we don't think that we're worth it either. So we don't do the work because we don't
right,
think we're worth it. So it becomes a feedback loop of I'm not worth it, I'm not good enough, therefore I'm not good enough to improve myself, I'm not good enough for this, not good enough for that, I'm not worthy enough to do the work. And it becomes a feedback loop from hell that's supported by other people.
right.
And that doesn't help anybody.
Right. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, and it doesn't. It's the whole world consciousness too, right? Because consciousness, energy is energy, right? So what are we feeding our minds? Again, it goes back into that mindset, and open lines of communication. You know, when you sit around in a mastermind group, right? A mastermind group is a bunch of people coming together with a mind just to throw anything and everything out. Nobody's taking anything personal. We're just taking this subject and we're gonna make it the best it is. So everybody throws out, right? And then you start sorting through, and you're saying, "Whoa, here's a piece of the puzzle that we need. We'll stick that up there on the board, right?" And it's like, you know, these are irrelevant. We'll put them over here just in case we need to clean something up about them. You know, so now you're sorting through, and if we can treat each other like spouses and family members, and even some of our best friends, to have that open line of communication where nobody takes a judgment, but turn it into a mastermind where everybody just puts all their cards on the table and they say, okay, how can we make this better together? Because it's about people working together, you know, one-on-one. You made a comment about this age thing and where you believe, you know, in your belief and where you are, you know, that you've already outlived, right, where you were supposed to be on planet years, shall we say. You know, and it goes both directions. You know, you're saying this and I'm thinking, well, this is so true, because I've been on the planet for 70 years. However, I am not 70, I am 45. I chose 45 as this is the perfect element for me. I had everything going for me. Everything in my life at 45 was exactly where I wanted to be and going, the drive, everything. I continue to be 45. So I've been 45 for a long time. Do the math, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost half.
You know, and so, which is, again, it's that mindset and it's your belief. What the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, right? So again, it's perspective, you know, and all we have is the now. What's back there is just that. You cannot change what's behind you. You can only change what's in front of you and create what you want in your projection ahead of you. But if you don't have that in the now, your past will look like your future because you're living in it and you're taking it with you. It will never change. So it's taking that action step. You know, what is the action that you have to take every single day? You talked about reading books, listening to podcasts, and doing all this, gaining all this information. You can have a library of information, and God only knows with the internet, the amount of information that's available today. I mean, you're inundated 24/7, right? That library is open continuously. Oh, Google it. Go to YouTube. You're going to find everything under the sun, right? So, but the thing is information is only as good as what you do with it, right? Right? So when you're working with your clients, Michael, and you're moving them through and you're helping them grow, how do you enforce that? How do you, well, maybe that's the wrong word. How do you integrate the ability to get them to take those action steps instead of making the excuses? Because you're doing two things. You're either making excuses or you're moving forward. You're making excuses or you're making money. You're making excuses or you're making judgments, right? Right. You know, what is it? You know.
Well, one of the first things that, just sort of touching on what you said as well, is that a lot of the time you can spend so long running away from your past that you forget that the idea is to change it so that you have a different future.
Exactly.
But if you spend so long holding on to it, running away from it, trying to correct the mistakes, you forget that, you know, that takes time.
Right.
So how are you going to spend your time? Right? You're spending your time getting over your past and running away from it so much that you don't really change anything because you spend so long running that, you know, if you let go of it, what's left, right? So your brain doesn't conceive of what's left. It conceives of what it has. So that's the first thing, is you've got to focus on the right things. You've got to focus on the future and how you're going to get there, like, now, so you don't put your focus on the past. But as a bit of a funny, interesting side note, one of my arguments, so like if you're trying to improve your future, right, and we often talk about past, present, or future.
Correct.
Sometimes focusing on the past can be a good thing. If you're struggling right now, but you've overcame some adversity in your past, it's probably a good idea to remind yourself of that. It's probably a good idea to, look, you overcame this before, Mike, you can do it again. That's
right.
Not focusing on the future. That's focusing on just getting through the day or getting through the week or getting through the month. But if you get to a point where you're struggling now, but you've been struggling for a while, focusing on the past is not going to help, because I've had this for ages. Oh my God, it's taken over. So no, okay, this time you've got to focus on the future. Not the past. So people often focus on the thing that makes them feel bad rather than focus on the thing that gives them that sense of hope or sense of, we can do this. So I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and gone, oh, here we go again. But I've got through some stuff before. I've been interviewed before. I've done this before. I've spoke on stage before. So whenever I'm like in the spotlight, I always tell myself, I've done this loads of times. There's nothing, no matter how much I worry, right? I still tell myself, you've done this before. You've done this loads of times. You're okay. And then I say, right, well, what would make this a good interview? What would make this more beneficial than the previous ones. So you don't. So a lot of people that study like spirituality and meditation, oh, you got to focus on the present. What if it's shit right now? What if you're not in a good space
That's
right now?
right. That's right.
There's no point in going, okay, I've got to be present. I've got to focus on the present. No, not if it's a bad place. You focus on where the positive is, not just focus on the present in the hope that that's going to improve it, when that doesn't really change your actions if you're acting from, as you said, that fear-based space, right? So you've got to focus on the time frame, the point in time that makes you feel the best. It makes you feel like you can manage it, like you can cope. So when it comes to, okay, how can we go from not making excuses, not telling ourselves that we're awful, we're worthless, we're shocking, we're no good, what's the point? Sometimes just shifting that to that moment in time when things were a bit better, you were a bit better, you felt a bit better, that can make all the difference. That's the first thing. But then there's a difference between excuses and reasons. There's a difference between excuses and, okay, maybe I need to actually address this thing because it's probably not going to go away. So when people use things like, you've got an excuse why you've not done that thing yet. Well, I don't really know what I'm doing. They're right. Is it true? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you could go ahead and research it. So sometimes people use the whole like evidence-based thing, and is there any proof of it? To sit there and go, oh, well, I don't know. So it just keeps them stuck again. So they're not moving forwards. So sometimes they use excuses like, well, I've not figured out if it's actually the case or not. Right, well, yes or no. Don't make it so difficult. Don't make it so complicated. I didn't know how to do a podcast first time round. So rather than me sat there and going, can I actually do a podcast? Do I actually know? And spend all day asking myself questions about being as clear as I can on the fact that I've never done one before, to actually just go out and research how to do it. So you can save time by saying, well, if it's real, then that's like step one, is to figure it out. So sometimes we get to a point where we try to like talk ourselves into just staying as we are, into not changing what we do. And very often that's part of the issue is, and some people read so many books about excuses and fear-based stories and all kinds of stuff. But the best books ever will say, well, maybe you've actually just got to do something about the situation that you're in. Sometimes you just got to, like, if you don't know how to do this now, okay, can you find out? Is there something that you can do to actually solve that problem? If it's actually a problem,
action. It's taking the action to get out of it, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
And that's where most people lag, is they forget to take the action. They know it, but knowing and doing is not the same thing.
No, it's not. And very often we can spend so long in our heads that we just get used to it. We get comfortable there. Right. So there's procrastination, that's one. But then there's the whole, like, you know, I don't know if you've ever had this, but let me just plan it first. Let me organize it. Let me figure it out. Let me get the blueprint. Let me find the steps. And it's like you could be spending years finding this blueprint that doesn't
and then that
anywhere.
turns into an excuse, right? An excuse to not because there's a fear of failure or there's a fear of success. You know, they're both very real. And it's like it's never going to be perfect. Just get it out there because someone needs to hear what you have to say. And that was another reason why I put this show together too, is to help get the word out. And if only one person hears something that you said today, then this show was worth every other day that I've ever done, right? Because it's changing someone's life. And that's the important. It's helping become that better you every step of the way. And again, it goes back to action, action, action. And two, you know, don't deny yourself a bad day. We are in a duality world. Recognize it and say, okay, hey, today's a downer. You know, I don't give a rat's about this. You know, I don't give a rat's about that. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't know what the hell's going on, but you know what? Just leave me the you know what alone, right? This is my day, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to pity party it to death, right?
We've all been there, and it's much better to do that than to drag it out.
Yeah,
because
but to recognize
because
it.
you kind of you almost convince yourself that you shouldn't have a bad day,
No.
to the extent where you convince yourself that you're not allowed a bad day for a week,
Yeah.
and
And
it
then you
turns
never
into
accomplish
a
anything
meh
for a whole
kind
week.
of week.
Right? Yeah.
So it becomes like a not good, not great, but not awful week where you still don't get anything done because you convinced yourself that you're not in a good mood,
That's
not in a
right.
good space, but the whole world's telling you that you're not allowed to be. And it just comes down to the whole system becomes self-defeating. The
Yeah.
whole system
It
becomes
sure does.
self-disempowering, and you don't sit there thinking, let's pull our finger out and start doing something about it. It
Right.
becomes, no, I've got to deal with this. It's like, well, no, because you're holding on to the same thing for so long that it becomes normal.
It does. It really does. And that's a
it's
normal that you don't like because it's not getting you the outcome you're seeking. And then you sit there and you think about that all the time. It's like you can overthink things, right? And it's all about that recognize what's going on. Recognize you got a bad day, you don't know why. Enjoy your bad day to its fullest, and then get over it and get on, because then you can be productive. Because if you're trying to deny yourself to have the bad day, to feel this way, like you said, it drags out, goes into a week, and then into 2 weeks, and then it becomes a personality trait, right? It's like, wait a minute. Right? So let yourself have the bad day, go by yourself, go outside, go into nature, give nature a piece of your mind, because you're going to be that expression of everything coming out. Nature will put you back into balance. Nature balances itself. You are a combination of nature. Go out there, have your bad day, have your pity party, play your martyr, be your survival, run wherever you want to go, but you can't run away from yourself, because every time you turn around, you're still there. So
Everywhere you go, there you are. That's exactly right.
That's
And I
right.
think as well, a lot of people can stay inside their own head for so long that it becomes like, well, I don't know what I have if I don't do this. So it becomes a sense of, well, if I do the work to improve myself, there's going to be a gray area,
Right.
like where you start to let go of everything that we've spoken about, to move away from everything that you've spoken about,
And into that
but
unknown.
in that unknown part where you don't
Right.
know yourself, where you've got no idea what's going on, everything's up in the air, you've got no clue how everything's going to go. All the puzzle pieces are in the air and they've
Right.
not landed yet. You're waiting for them to land. You're waiting for the second shoe to drop. That's a very scary place to be.
Yeah.
It's not straightforward. It's not healthy. It's not helpful. It's not healthy. It's not something that anyone actually wants to do,
Right.
because it's not safe. It's not safe enough. And sometimes safety has to come first. You need to be in a space whereby letting go of yourself, losing yourself, getting through that gray area to then find yourself again
Right.
is not something that you can do unless you feel safe first. So whether that's you do it alone so that you're the only person that knows all of this stuff,
Right.
whether you tell someone that you have complete faith in, complete confidence in, so look, I'm going through some stuff right now, I need someone that I can just be the brick wall, someone that I can talk to, just shout at, scream at, cry at, whatever it is,
Right.
someone that I can just turn to for anything. Having that there and that person be, look, tell me anything, it doesn't matter, I probably won't remember it, I cared about you enough to A, listen, but also B, let it go straight away.
Right.
So whatever happens when all the dust settles, I'm not going to go away, and I'm still going to be here to
Right.
be the friend or the whoever it is to the person on the other side. And
That's
most
so
people
beautiful.
don't have that.
No, they don't. And sometimes I think they're afraid to ask for it. It's there in front of them, but they're afraid to ask for it because, well, I don't want to air my dirty laundry, or I don't want to dump all this on someone else. But you used it as a brick wall. I tell people, it's like it's being a sponge or a sounding board, right? And sometimes we just need that sounding board, that brick wall to listen to. And what I found, on my journey, in my early journeys, because there wasn't anyone out there to talk to, and I didn't even know what the heck I was talking about. But I knew when I started releasing a lot of the anger, most of it was started with my dad, right? And I loved my dad, and he was my all. But the anger that I had, so I would envision, I put a picture of my dad up here, right? And I would just yell and kick and scream and just get it all out. And the biggest aha moment of the anger that I had directed at him, once I got it out, what came back was, I'm not angry at my dad. I'm angry at my reaction to an action that he took. And I put it in here in this way. It was my perception of that event. So my reaction to his action was the issue. So when we can start looking at, why are we responding and reacting to someone else's action in a certain way, you're going to resolve so much before it implodes into something totally out of control. This little molehill turning into this massive mountain can stop right there when we recognize, why did we react to that action? Why did we attach that emotion to that action? What's going on in here with me? And clear it out right there from the beginning. It saves a whole lot of headache, and that for me has been such an asset in my own life of correcting all the stuff that I had built inside of me around anger, and then around the hate, and then around the frustrations, and then around the depressions, and around everything else, in my whole journey. Finding this identity, because I was identifying with what I perceived to be truth, which really in essence wasn't. But you got to recognize where your truth begins in how you perceived it in the moment with the database of information you had, right? And that is being aware of your activity, of what it is that's stored in there, so that you can communicate where that storage bank is. But you got to recognize it and acknowledge it. Then you can go in and get it out of there and put the new stuff in, because you have a new database of information to work from, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that we've gone down a massive rabbit hole there as a way of saying that until you really get out of your own way, you're not going to be able to go as far as you want, because it is going to show up. It is going to, we spoke about, being on stage and doing the sort of things that we're doing now. They will show up because it's the stressful situations that bring it out. It's the stressful situations that make our brain focus on the negative, focus on the threats, focus on the insecurities, if you will, because it has to, because it's got no other choice, because it's the only thing that it can focus on. It's the only thing that it can really think about, because it works so hard. The brain processes information so quickly that when you're in the stressful situations, your brain works faster.
Yeah, it's just automatic pilot, and it goes back to what is stored in that memory, right?
Exactly.
And it's going to be automatic responses, and that's why we respond like instantaneous to certain things, right? But again, once that reaction has happened, now it's your opportunity to say, whoa, why did I do that? I don't like responding that way. I don't like being that way. What can I do to change that? What was the trigger? What was the word? What was the scent? What was the comment? What was the event? What did the person's tone of voice? All these little different things can trigger those actions, right? That response. Yeah. And that's part of that finding out and that growing and getting to know your true identity, by getting rid of the identity that you don't want to be, that really isn't you. So sometimes getting rid of the don't wants will help you find what you really want, right?
Exactly. And that's something that I spent a long time doing, as I said. Sometimes it's about testing, experimenting. Sometimes it's things that you think that you want until you actually get it, and then you realize, oh,
what did I want this for?
It's not as great as I thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
That happens a lot, and that's okay. And a lot of people don't want to make mistakes because they don't like finding out. The amount of people that I've worked with that must have had dreams, right? We all have dreams, right? We all want to do things. I mean, it's something that we've all had dreams somewhere down the line. And when you start to make them real, most people don't want to do that because then you need new dreams.
Yeah,
so,
well,
so,
that's true.
yeah, so sometimes people don't actually want to achieve their dreams or take any steps towards their dreams because what if it's underwhelming? What if it doesn't work out as well as I dreamt it was going to be?
Right.
What am I going to dream about now? This is why some people like to latch on to the fact that, oh, maybe ghosts are real. Maybe the supernatural's real, and they don't want to be proved wrong. Because
Right.
if they do get proved wrong, what else is there to believe in? So sometimes we latch on to beliefs, and we like the supernatural, and we like stuff not to be proven or shown or achieve, because when that goes away,
Then
what's left?
then what is there? Yeah. And
Yeah.
and a lot of times, accomplishing your dreams, right? And making a just different accomplishments during not the day, your different commitments, and what all that entails, it comes down to responsibility. Right?
Yeah.
Because now you've got to be responsible for that outcome. You got to be responsible for what's going on here because you're making an impact and whatever. So that sometimes people just do not want that responsibility. And so if I stay over here, I don't have to be responsible, and then I can blame somebody else, right? Because we dump that responsibility out. It's like so we look at like say we put people in the medical field, doctors. They're supposed to be the expert, right? And same way with you. Okay, you're supposed to be the expert because you're the coach in this, whatever. So now you are the one that has to be responsible for my actions or my unactions, right? So it's your fault that I didn't get better, or well, the doctor said, so it's his fault he gave me the wrong medicine. It's his fault that I didn't get over this. You know what I'm saying? So it's it's taking and removing the responsibility of the self to someone else, so that I don't have to be responsible for me. It's your responsibility to do this for me. Oh no, that's all backwards. That's all backwards. Somebody didn't get the memo to you in the correct perception. So let's change the memo here.
Yeah, it's a weird sensation really, because some of the dreams that I've had, I started to achieve them and I started to get them, and unless you've actually taken steps, unless you've actually tried to achieve what you really wanted, you don't know what it's like. It's not actually as fulfilling as people think, because very quickly you've got to think of something else. As I said, you need the new dream, you need the new thing to believe.
You get the instant aha, and it's the chase that's more fulfilling and more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, exciting is the word that I would use now. Crazy, scary, and oh my god, I don't know if I'm going to actually manage to do this thing is probably a bit more accurate when it's actually happening.
Yeah.
So I think that people don't realize what they're up against in terms of their own head. They don't realize how difficult it actually is, and it's very difficult. It's not something I would have, although I help people do it, it isn't something I would turn around to people and say, you've got to achieve your dreams. It's like, well, maybe, but if you're not a dreamer, you've got to find something to replace it with. Otherwise, you need to find something to feel good, something to help you feel
something
happy.
That's going to keep you in that forward motion, because when you become stagnant energy becomes stale. When it becomes stale, it begins to rot and decay. So you have two choices on the planet. You're either living or you're decaying, right?
Yeah. I think but either way, it doesn't. People used to say, "Oh, must be amazing that you can do this. Must be amazing that you can." So, yeah, but it didn't always start off that way.
No.
I'm telling you now, I was a bag of nerves for about 3 months. I was bouncing off the ceiling. I had to get rid of all this energy. I was exercising 3 times a day to get rid of the nerves. I was doing all kinds of stuff just to be able to get by.
Yeah.
And they'll be, oh, you seem so calm. No, I do a lot to make sure I seem calm.
That's right. Yeah, you don't
Inside
see
my-
what's
in-
going on behind the scenes, just like the production of the show here, right? You don't see what goes on behind the show. You see this. But if we didn't take care of all that behind the scenes, it would not be here in this manner. So,
No,
Michael,
exactly.
it's been such a pleasure having you here. Oh my gosh, and we could talk a lot about this and working through a lot of things that you mentioned are really great ideas, and and I hope our audience got a lot of great information, and I hope you're commenting down here. Let us know what you liked about what Michael was saying. Where do you find yourself in your commitments, in your procrastinations? Give us some feedback. And Michael, if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, the best place to find me would be on social media. So Facebook, my Facebook page is I am Mike McDonnell. Instagram is not hashtag, at symbol, Michael_McDonnell1. That's Instagram. They're the two main places, really. And yeah, I also have a Facebook group as well that's centered around business owners that want to be seen as experts, but they've got their own fears and insecurities, and they want to be more confident when they do that. So that's what I help people with, and that's where you can check me out.
Okay, so that's Michael McDonnell from the islands of, what was the name of that place?
Lanzarote.
Lanzarote. And wow, it sounds like a beautiful place to be. It sounds really romantic. And so thank you again so much, Michael, for being here. And wow, we might have to just get you back on the show again. And so it's time to say, go out there and be that best you that you can be, because Michael and I are going to be the best we can be. So we'll see you all on the next show. What?